welcome to the Four Wards Podcast. Hey, what's up? It's Eric Bra, voice of Draven, Jerks, and Vel'Koz. And you're listening to the Four Wards Podcast, here to help you move forward in League.
All right, guys, welcome. This is the Four Wards Podcast. Thanks, everyone, for joining us here tonight. My name is Haberdashing, joined by three wonderful gentlemen. We got Doomspikinator, Asderition, and FrozztByte all here tonight. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man.
Well, thank you.
I feel like every week where Haberdashing introduces us, we get like promoted. Like we're like people, we were like individuals. Now we're gentlemen.
Yeah.
I feel so happy right
I
now.
called you lizard people in the first one.
So what do we get for the next time the intro happens?
Well, I got to knock you down a peg now that you realized it.
You can't
no.
Dude, you
So-
you can't bring me down. I only go up.
Eh,
You can't.
We'll see. It's a challenge now.
Next
Oh.
week it's gonna be joined by three very sexy gentlemen.
And not Asderition.
Oh,
Oh,
Get a
You
haircut.
call Lux a whore and then you freaking don't call me sexy.
That was-
she is a
I'm
right.
whore. She is the sun's whore.
It's true. Okay, guys, we got a lot to get through here tonight, so let's just dive right in. I got a couple announcements we're going to get through. First, got an email from Stark Maximum, a very kind email, talking about a rule that he's learned through his experiences, and he just surmised it saying, no one can win a 1v5. And I was wondering, was he listening? Because I'm pretty sure I said the exact same thing like an episode or two ago.
I think you're lying.
Yeah.
What?
I'm lying?
No.
We have audio recording of it.
we do have audio evidence of it.
Yeah.
Lies.
But
it's
anyways,
a good point though.
yeah, and
It's a team game.
it's true. And like as much as you want to say like you can try to carry yourself, you can never win a 1v5. So he summed up his email in a very nice way. Thank you so much for all your effort, guys. Four Wards is without a doubt my #1 league podcast. Aw. So sweet.
It makes
So-
me feel really good.
Yeah. Guys, we got a couple other announcements here. Supersode, that is our big thing we're going to be harping on next week and this week and next week, because not next week, but the week afterwards, that's where we're going to have the Supersode going on. So please keep sending in your tweets using the hashtag Supersode. Give us anything like what is AD? What is AP? Anything in everything at all. Send
If
in.
you've ever heard anything in League of Legends, like a term someone's thrown around, and like you've heard it more than once, you have no clue what it is, just like send it into us, hashtag Supersode, or send it to our email, and we'll try and talk about it on this episode.
Yeah, acronyms and everything. Just, it can be... Supersode is going to be covering the basics, and kind of the whole point of it is to be able to, use terms like AP, AD, AA, and things like that, and refer to it in every episode. Just say, hey, if you don't know what these are, go back to this episode, Supersode, and you're going to learn it all. So it's just to open it up and make newer people to the game feel a little more comfortable while not being so maybe monotonous in our phrasing to where it might turn some of the more veteran players off a bit. So
Yeah, and also for you older players, if there's a specific terminology or anything that you think newer players should know, or that you wish you knew when you were starting out, go ahead and let us know about that as well.
Yeah.
yes.
Please do that. Also, keep sending in all your other questions and feedback that you have to our email, along with any other requests for coaching. We've already, all of us are getting kind of busy right now trying to coach people, and it's phenomenal. I love
It's
doing
awesome.
it.
So much fun. Oh my goodness. I think we all taught today. We all coached today. And
Yep.
before we did the podcast, it was really cool.
I'm working with someone who loves Trundle, so it just makes me
Nice.
flutter.
Oh man. I
So if
can't.
you
And
like,
I'm like, you love him top. I'm gonna teach you how to take him in the jungle. So yeah.
I can't wait
Yeah.
till I get a Lux main. It's just like, teach me, senpai. I'll teach you, buddy.
Yeah,
I'll
someday.
teach
Someday, if you're listening out there and you like to learn more about Lux, Asderition will, take you on his magic carpet and a whole new world, and then ult your face. Guys, we got it. Yeah, we're gonna get caught up on iTunes reviews tonight, so I'm gonna let FrozztByte walk through those here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to everyone who wrote in with iTunes reviews, and I love getting all the positive feedback, but I've listened to podcasts a lot myself, and I know that I get annoyed when people go on and word for
Keep it
word
short.
read them. So let me just quickly run through. I've got about 4 here. We got Ryan, who says podcast is hilarious. Lytning22 saying professional and informative.
Is that like those contradict each
Lies.
other? Like, I feel like hilarious and professional should not be used to describe this. Hey, I'll take it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Hey, well, Disconnected says that Trinity Force Network does it again.
If that's not a headline in a newspaper, I don't know what is.
This is good. That's gonna be the intro. That's gonna be the name for this one. T-Force does it again.
And lastly, Izzy writes in and wrote a whole bunch of information.
So much.
It's
So
a really
much.
good. It's a really good review, but
It's very
it's,
flattering.
I don't want to take up all the show, but definitely recommend checking it out. And if you want to get a shout out on the show or really just support the podcast, we'd really appreciate if you wrote in and reviewed the show. It really helps to get the show up and running.
It really
Just-
does. Because we
just-
want to branch this out to as many new players as possible. Because I think I'm finding information for people who write into the show. It's kind of hard to find this starter information that's not totally outdated now. So we want to be that podcast for people.
Yeah, and I just want to go back and say something real quick on the iTunes reviews. It's not just Izzy; it's Izzy the Poppy lover.
Yeah.
She
Oh, right.
loves
True.
Optimus Tom. She loves Poppy.
And it's not Ryan;
Loves.
it's Ryan.
It's worth noting there's a Poppy shirt being
There
sold
is, yeah.
There
on
is.
this network.
T-Force
You can
Teespring,
support-
yeah.
Yeah, you can support the network, T-Force Teespring, and order the Optimus Poppy T-shirt. It's pretty sweet. Nice little
Actually-
follow-up to the King to Clog shirt, and helps out the network, so that helps us out too. So please feel free, hit up the T-Force site. You'll see the link to it. Check out the Reddit, check out the Twitter. You'll see links to it, and order the Optimus Poppy shirt. It's pretty sweet. Comes in a lot of different colors.
And just feels so nice, I guess. I don't know.
Wait,
It's
you have
pure
one?
cotton. No, I don't yet. I'm
Oh.
not getting a Poppy shirt. Sorry.
I want my luck shirt.
I kind of want it.
Don't let that discourage anyone else from getting that shirt. It's very nice. So that is all of our announcements. So we're just going to move right into our discussion. And this week it is the mid game. Now this is a very big section, possibly the most complex of the game and the most different things about it. So we're going to try to get through what we can this week, and whatever we don't, we're going to carry over into next week to make sure that we're not leaving stuff out, because this is a very, very important part of the game.
Fact.
Fact. Yeah.
If not the most important part.
Well,
Yeah, it's
And honestly, it's because early game is important, but at the same time, if you have a bad early game, you can recover it in the mid game. And if you have a great early game, you can completely blow it in the mid game. So it's very important.
So what we mean by the mid game is it's really hard to pinpoint a spot for it. There's never one point when you say, oh, this is the mid game now. What I think the mid game is, it's really an idea, a mindset in League that is highly objective focused and team oriented when compared to the laning phase.
Yeah.
It's when you start to take more towers. It's when you start to group up on more. It's when you start to take more dragons, barons, inhibitors, all that stuff.
So, the way I view the mid game, there's no actual clear transition from the early game to the mid game. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that there's actually There's literally no point to where you can say, okay, we're in the mid game now. It's
Well,
a
I think,
transition. It's easing into it. You're still in the early game, but you're also in the mid game at the same time. You have two aspects of both sides of the game, and that's that little transition period that's like tough to. That's when we say, oh, we don't know if this is a mid game. That little area, if you don't know if you're in the mid game or the early game, you're in that little in between area where you got aspects of both. And then you're going to move into the mid game.
Anything can really start the mid game. It can start like at the first time someone roams. That can start that transition. It can start when the first tower goes down. I mean, it's these little things where it stops being a 1v1, a 1v1, a 2v2, and it starts being more about a 5v5.
Exactly, yeah. If you remember when we went through the early game, we talked about the most important thing is setting yourself up for the mid game, because the mid game is where a lot of the real action happens around objectives, and ultimately League of Legends is an objective-based game.
Yeah.
I also agree that it's a bit of a gray area where it exactly starts, but it's sort of like the end of the laning phase. It's sort of like usually when towers start going down and people start grouping up and moving around the map, it's no longer really the early game, and it starts transitioning into the more of the mid game, which is what we're going to talk about here today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really look at it at the mid game as really when the first tower falls or is about to fall on either side. Like, I'd say if you want a really definitive point, that's probably the most definitive
Especially
point.
if it's like the bot turret.
The most
or mid.
objective.
It's the most definitive point.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it doesn't.
you
it's
can
not,
argue that it's when the first dragon fight is, but that could happen before or after.
There's like
never
level
happen.
3 junglers that can pull it off sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, just because the tower goes down also it doesn't mean that the mid game's starting.
Absolutely.
I like to maintain that it's mostly about beginning that 5v5, and you can either start that or you can delay that yourself, depending on who you're playing. Because I mean, it's thrown around a lot. There are early game champions and then there's late game champions. The champions that are defined as late game want to make that laning phase go on for as long as possible, because once they start getting into mid game, those people have a hard time keeping up.
Yep.
So, you know, like your Nasus, Vayne, Callista, Jax, Vigar, for some examples, they do really well just by trying to make the laning phase last as long as possible.
Yeah, and meanwhile, if you're wanting the mid game to extend and the late game to last and really get into a later late game, you're talking about tanks mostly or hyper carries. So tanks benefit from Maokai, Shen, Malphite, people like that who need those items and need that tankiness, or hyper carries like Kog'Maw, Vayne, stuff like that.
If you're wondering, like you're not sure, like obviously we can't go through all 123 champions here, but if you go over, like I love champion.gg. They have a statistic there, win rate as the game goes on, and you can like clearly see like some champions graphs as the game goes on, their win rate keeps going up, where other ones it's the exact opposite, and you can kind of tell from there, okay, that's where my champion's the strongest, and play accordingly.
I think we can get more into champions when we talk about the different strategies that go into the mid game. But I think now that we've kind of talked about where it began, it'd probably be good to talk about why it's so important. Like, why we keep hyping up the mid game as such an important part of the game.
I mean, the mid game is the majority of the game. Early game usually ends roughly around the 15-minute mark. Yeah. So you're looking at a majority of the game, and this is the part where you really get to see how good of a player you are, because this tests everything from how well you can, your mechanics,
where you get down
how
to
well
business
you work
to defeat the Huns.
Yeah, exactly. We're making a man out of you, so
yeah. I mean, like,
it's quintessential that you do your best, and it's quintessential that you also know what you're doing, because if you don't, and you don't know how to team fight, you don't know how to take objectives, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, this is where it stops being about like individual skill in lane and being more about, okay, do you know what you need to do next?
Exactly. I think it becomes more of a game, a point in the game where people who have really good game knowledge and game sense, it really starts to show off because they start to put pressure around objectives at key points, and they're really smart about being at the right place at the right time and working together and knowing what their champion brings to the team. And then taking advantage of that. Whereas some champions or some people are very well versed in their champion early on. They bully the people out of the lane. Maybe they even get a few kills and get a high KDA, but then they get into the mid game and they're like, I don't know how to carry this game because they have no clue where they're supposed to be, what the mid game's about, and what they should be doing.
They start blaming it on the rest of the team.
That's the best.
I know you, Riven players.
And the other thing is a lot of people there's a lot of different strategies to starting a successful mid game, and a lot of people don't really know exactly what to do. And that kind of comes down to knowing not only your champ, but your comp's strengths. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. And weaknesses, yes. There's different ways you can approach it, you know, whether it be team fights, whether it be fighting over objectives, whether it be vision, pick comps, and, you know, kind of get into what these are. But you know, shoving lanes, split pushing. So this is really where individual laning strategy goes out the window and team strategy really comes into play. And this is where a lot of solo queue games fall apart.
The easiest way I think you can start early game is just by grouping. Now, if you're ahead in your lane, this means taking that tower first and then going to roam. If you're behind, it means you just kind of have to leave lane sometimes.
Yeah.
If you know, like, okay, we're already a couple kills down in our lane. The only thing that's going to happen from me staying here is I'm going to die again. You know, get the rest of your team involved. Go to them. Start the mid game yourself, because at that point, it no longer is about like what happened in that lane and what that one person can do. It's now about what you can do as a team together.
Yeah, just to give an example, one thing that commonly happens is there's some sort of event happens on the bottom side of the map, and then a turret gets taken, and then maybe a dragon gets taken, and then all of a sudden it's no longer about the AD carry and the support just chilling in bot lane. They're going to start moving around, maybe go to the mid lane and try and get that turret. And when things like this happen, both teams kind of have to work together to outmaneuver the other, and group together, because if one team is grouping and doing well, or at least is playing their strategy correctly, and the other team is not responding and is still kind of playing the laning phase, then they're just gonna start losing objectives left and right.
Yeah, there's something that happens I like to call the mid lane shuffle. It happens a lot in like pre-30 bronze, where like people don't know what to do. So like, oh, I don't know, we'll just all show up mid, I guess. So you just instantly have 5 people in mid. Like they think that they're grouping in, they know what to do. But
and ARAM mid, go.
Yeah, the thing is, you need to be the one that initiates it, and you have to start it quick. Because as soon as people start showing up, everyone's like, oh, I guess I'll go mid too. I guess I go mid too.
Yeah.
And before you know it, it's just a 5v5 in the mid lane. And at that point, you know, you've lost your advantage that you might have.
There's one note that I wanted to say about grouping up and specifically in correlation to the LCS. A lot of people and a lot of newer players, even players that I know don't play the game, they watch the LCS because they find it entertaining. You're going to see a lot of teams that group up almost immediately, and they rotate or do stuff, and they do crazy things, or maybe they group up a lot earlier. I want to take this second to be like, you newer players, don't use the LCS as the reference for when to group, because oftentimes they group because they know that they can fight as a team. They know they know what their teammates are capable of. They know that their teammates will follow through in specific ways or do specific things, and they're calling to each other. This topic, this discussion that we're having, is for, I don't want to say like the normal players, but the rest of us that aren't in the LCS. Like,
and
this
solo
is the meta.
Solo queue environment.
And this is a solo queue kind of idea. This mid-game kind of discussion about when it starts or what you're really looking for is mostly orientated towards solo queue. There is some 5v5 aspects to it, a significant amount of 5v5 aspect to it, but you're going to notice some distinct differences between what mid-game is in solo queue and what mid-game is in 5v5s, and right now we're focusing on mid-game for solo queue. So just to cover that, so you guys know, this is not the kind of mid-game talk that we would have for a 5v5 type of game type, because it's way different if you're in a 5v5 setting, like ranked 5v5.
So let's start talking about what are some different strategies that people will employ in the mid game as you transition to the mid game. What are some strategies? What are some ways that you can start to have a successful mid game?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a lot of different things here that we can talk about. I think one of the most basic ones is called a siege. The idea, it's kind of like what we talked about earlier, and this is sometimes what happens in lower level games when without even really planning it properly. A siege is when you want to get objectives. That's the goal of the mid game. So you just get everyone in a lane and you just start poking down the enemy team and hoping that you're going to get that objective as a result of grouping and hopefully just overwhelming your opponent at the turret until you eventually get the turret.
Yeah. And, you know, a few good champions that are just really good at this. Mid laners usually are amazing.
Wait for it.
At sieging. And I was actually, first and foremost, I'm going to say Ziggs is one of the best.
Oh my god, he did.
He's one of the best
I
siegers.
thought for sure you were going to say Lux.
I mean, I am going to say Lux. She's got amazing wave clear. But, I mean, you look, sieging is a very specific strategy. It's usually the most effective strategy. Because right now we're in a siege meta. We're really good at sieging because of Dragon. Dragon gives us so much siege potential. Between bonus minion damage, just bonus flat damage, like sieging is great. So champions like Ziggs, who mind you also just got, you know, some changes to them, they work really well. And champions that can wave clear really fast, you know, kill minions really quickly, or do damage to the turret from a distance are awesome at sieging. And Ziggs, Lux, a lot of mid laners, ADCs, they're all really good at sieging.
And also, just kind of to compound on this, so for example, me in the jungle, most junglers aren't ranged and most don't have a ton of wave clear or the ability to really siege down or poke at the which is trading damage to the opponent while not taking any. They don't really have the ability to do that. So if you're a jungler or a top or someone who can't do this, the best thing for you to be doing is to either be farming out of those lanes that are safe for you to farm in. So that means ones where you still have tower control there and where you have good vision around there, so you know that no one's going to dive on you. And this is times when you want to establish good vision control of the jungle, of the river, of the dragon, and farm up in the jungle. So you want to make sure that you're staying relevant by getting golden experience by killing jungle camps or going and killing off minion waves where it's safe for you to do so. But at the same time, you want to be close enough to your team to where you can join them if a team fight were to start initiating as they're trying to siege towers. And you want to make sure that you have that vision control around objectives like Dragon and Baron, so that when those come up, now you're ready, you're in a place to take them. You're in a place to where you know everything that's there. You know where the enemy team isn't, at least, or you may know where they are at. And you know what you can do from there. And one of the
a really good point. I'm sorry, I'm cutting off.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
It's sometimes tricky on a lot of melee champions to kind of figure out what to do in a siege, because you're not doing the poking and you can't get too close to the turret because then the enemy team can just engage on you. So one of the things you can do that Doom mentioned is look for nearby things that are still kind of close to the team, like nearby jungle camps and whatnot. But the point that Doom lightly touched on that I really want to hit here is that in the mid game, as a jungler, you really have to be very careful about where your position is on the map. The higher you get up, the more and more you will get punished if you're playing the jungler and you're not. You're not looking at the timers and the dragon spawns and then bam, the enemy team gets a free dragon. Or bam, like all of a sudden this situation breaks out where you could have gotten objective, but the jungler wasn't close to the team, and now it's too risky to do it. You really got to be careful, and this goes for everyone too, to where you are on the map at a given time, but particularly for junglers. You have to inspect your timers. You need to make sure you're close enough to your team.
And timers, it's a big one. Timers are huge. I want to say newer players are a little spoiled because you kind of are. Us older players,
hit that tab button.
We had to actually write in when things died. And I'm not saying that that's like, oh yeah, it was back in my days. But I mean, you have this awesome tool. Use it, please. Use it. Just press
for
tab.
clarity's sake, can we just run down timers here?
That's exactly
okay.
what I was thinking.
So what this is that when a camp dies that you have vision on. When you hit the tab key,
a buff.
Yeah, this would be the red buff, the blue buff, on both sides of the map. The dragon and the baron show up in these timers, and they show up in the top of your screen when you hit the tab key. So the ones on the right side are your red buff and blue buff in your cycle. On the left of that is the enemy's red and blue buff, and then you have the dragon icon and the baron icon, and they're pretty clear. One's brown and one's purple, and this lets you know when that is going to spawn next, as long as you had vision on it when it died. If it shows nothing, if it just shows a line, that means that you didn't have vision on it last time it died, so you don't know if it's up.
Or it hasn't spawned yet, i.e. Baron doesn't spawn until 15 minutes, so don't try and take Baron. And if you don't oh shit, I don't see all the markers. Baron gone. It's 12 minutes, buddy. It's not even up yet.
And something I didn't realize for a long time, if you actually hover over the icon, it tells you what the respawn is on the objective. So let's say you just forgot that it's 6 minutes.
It does?
Yeah,
I actually didn't even know that. That's great.
If you scroll over, it'll tell you, okay, this is how long it takes for dragon to respawn. So it could be useful if you didn't see and get that timer, but you know that they just did the dragon. You can type it out and say, okay, this much time from now, I need to be in a position near dragon, so that way the enemy team can't just freely take it.
For the curious, it goes 5, 6, 7 for timers, 5 for buffs, 6 for dragon, 7 for baron. Just so you guys know.
And a quick little note too, when it comes to getting vision control and going into those areas, a good rule of thumb is that if you need to back and go buy items or stuff before you go into one of those fights, you need to back a minimum of a minute to a minute 30 before it comes up, which will give you ample time to get back there.
Well, let's talk about the dragon here, because that's obviously a very important thing in the mid game before we talk more about sieging. Doom's right. It's important to know when the dragon spawns. And the timers I like to keep in my head is 2 minutes before it spawns, you let your team know. A minute and a half, it's time to put wards down around the area. A minute before, it's time to go back to prepare for it. And so that by that point, you're ready. When that dragon spawns, you'll have vision on the area. Your team should be able to react by that point, 2 minutes. Anyways, and you'll have an easier time.
It's definitely way easier if you establish vision control. Everything that Haber just mentioned is right. That you need, if you can look at the timer and say, okay, we need to prepare for this event, and you start warding around the common places that the enemy team would try and come contest the dragon, and you actually prepare proactively for objectives, it's really the best way to approach it, because vision control, it goes hand in hand with objective control, and objectives wins games. So it's really, we emphasize warding. The name of our show is For Wards.
Yes.
It's really important that you get wards out, because wards lead to vision control, and vision control leads to objectives.
I explained this in listener email that we got, but you have to understand, League, it's one of those weird situations. Imagine you're playing chess, okay? And I've known that this analogy has been said before. I've seen it other places, but imagine you're playing chess. Now, imagine that you can only see the pieces, your enemy's pieces, that are right next to your pieces.
Man, that'd be hard.
That that makes the game so much harder, right? So that's the point of having Ward, is trying to get you more information so you can capitalize on your enemy's mistakes. You can use that information to your advantage.
But it goes both ways too. Like, you may see the dark, but they also see the dark. And this comes to, we're talking about vision control, vision denial.
Definitely.
Taking out wards when you're going in for dragon, grabbing scuttle.
Embrace the darkness.
Not letting them get scuttle is, I think, one of the easiest ways of making sure you secure dragon. Is if you get scuttle, like, it's so easy to get. If your team kills scuttle and you're all on scuttle, like, if you don't get dragon and dragon's just chilling there, it hasn't been started yet, like, you must have done something wrong, because scuttle is like almost. It's not a guarantee, but it really helps in taking dragon. That movement boost is huge.
Quick note about that: it only lasts a minute and a half.
Yeah.
So if you're planning on taking dragon, if it's 2 minutes, probably wait a little bit to take scuttle, so it's up for when you're doing dragon.
Yeah. Wait, like, back first and then go to dragon. Again, making sure that you're with a team. You don't want to go alone, because that's dangerous. Knowing that dragon's going up and you're like, I'm gonna go to dragon by myself.
Yeah.
Bad idea. So.
All this ties into what you want to do for a dragon is you want to prepare for it. I see a lot of people that are like 40 seconds away from dragon spawning, or around that time, a little more, a little less, and then they just kind of all stand there, and then they're like, we need to be here for dragon, but dragon's not up, and then all of a sudden everything falls apart everywhere else, or they get engaged on. If you push out lanes, if you get vision in the area, if you create pressure and then go to dragon, it's a lot easier to secure it than if you just all kind of stand there for the next like 30-40 seconds.
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, now I love this discussion and the importance of dragon and everything like that, and vision, but there are other things you can do in the mid game.
Well, I want to say something about dragon before we move on.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about how to kill dragon and what people should be doing when they're taking dragon, because I'm a little sick of seeing the jungler outside of the dragon pit trying to peel. I'm actually really sick of it. There's a few rules when you're taking dragon. First off, jungler should almost never, ever, ever, ever leave dragon when you're killing dragon. If you're leaving to go peel, you're doing something wrong when you're dragoning. You cannot leave dragon. If you're not in smite range and you don't smite it and you don't get that dragon, people are gonna get mad at you. I'm gonna get mad at you. It's your job. I'm sorry. It's your job. Like, you gotta know how to smite dragon. Stay on dragon. ADCs, be on dragon. It's safer.
Exactly.
You'd be surprised. It's seriously safer to be killing dragon than trying to peel.
Yeah.
And
it's giving you this little alcove that you can hide away in.
And mid laners, your job is to peel. It's your job to make sure that you're sitting off into a side bush or off to the side, making sure that you're ready to either snare or blow someone out of the water, keeping away the enemy team.
That doesn't mean that, like, if no one's around, you just stay in the bush waiting.
Don't get
everyone's doing the dragon.
The hell are you doing, Lux?
No, I got this, guys.
Don't get yourself killed, but
dude,
like,
guys, I got this. 1v5.
I did, actually. I got 3 of them because I bound 2 and then used my E, and then they're all dead. So. I mean, they line up. They really like that little area, like dragon, and then they line up right here, and they just let me kill them all. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, the point being,
the idea is that if
you're not waiting there for nothing.
Yeah, as far as the ADC and the jungler go, the idea is that you want the highest consistent damage to the objective to stay on the objective,
and you want the CC on the enemy team trying to keep them off the dragon, like, whatsoever. So that's where your supports and your mages come in.
Exactly. So if you have the damage staying on the dragon, it's really hard for the enemy team to contest without, like, really committing. And then even if they do it, you have so much damage on the dragon plus the value of having a smite on your jungler that it's really hard for them to take the dragon from you, as long as everyone knows their role around a dragon fight.
Yes. Make sure that you know your role when you're fighting dragon.
Now let's go and look at 3 different scenarios that can come up when it comes to dragon and dragon fights, which are 1, you're getting collapsed on. So the enemy team, they decide to come in on you. They got vision. You weren't able to deny enough vision while you're going at dragon. There is one very important word. And if you do if I don't know if anyone ever listens to the mic checks, that LOL esports post where it's like all the mic feeds from all the pros as they're playing. There is one very important word you will hear a lot and is great to learn: turn. And sometimes you have to know when to turn. So you may be putting damage on that dragon as a team, but if you see your mid laner suddenly 5 people coming at them, it's time to turn. And even just typing turn or pinging a target, it's time to go.
Pinging a target is huge.
Yeah, and do not ever in solo queue think, oh well, I'm the leader, I'm the boss, or I'm not gonna listen to them. When you work as a group hive, as a group mind, and have that group mentality, then you're going to win together and you're going to lose together. Either way, you're going to win and lose together in this game. So you're better off
doing it together.
Doing it together. If someone says turn, turn, go.
Yeah, I'm going to have to just cut this off here. We're going to save like the rest of that discussion for like when we talk about team fights in another episode. Maybe not next time.
On the next episode.
Maybe not
of the
like
Four Words podcast.
Maybe not next time, but in a future episode, we will have at least one whole episode dedicating to learning about team fighting. But we really need to get back to the mid-game discussion here. So we had briefly talked about split pushing before. I think that was mentioned.
No, we talked about sieging.
We talked about sieging. I'm saying like we
mentioned split pushing.
Pushing.
One thing I wanted to say
before
we move on to split pushing is we talked about, how to siege. You group around the turret and you pretty much poke them out until you get the objective. But how do you deal with a siege?
Okay. Well, this is really... Go ahead.
The best, and this is kind of where I was going with, breaking off of the dragon discussion.
Oh, sure.
Is if you see the other team doing something, or they're doing something, that you need to make them pay for it. This is, everything in the mid game is tit for tat. So you see them taking dragon. If your team is not in a position to be able to either A, go to toe with them because you had a bad laning phase, or B, be able to contest it because you just didn't have the vision control or the presence, now's the time that you need to make them pay for it. So go take a tower. And preferably one that's farther from them, so mid or top.
So, way, if they're saying like, oh, you guys are all at dragon, that means no one's top lane.
Yep. So now it's time to shove a lane, take a tower, make them pay for that. Sure, they got the first dragon, but you know what is more important than the first couple dragons? Not saying dragon's not important, but a lot of people overvalue dragon. Especially the first
where we
or
are
second
right
dragons.
now, towers are very important.
Yeah,
towers do not respawn.
Towers are way more important. Towers, exactly. Like you said, towers don't respawn, and towers give gold. Dragon does not give gold. Gold gives items.
It doesn't.
Items gives you a lead.
Okay, well, dragon doesn't necessarily give you gold in the traditional sense, but it still gives you a gold value.
Yeah,
it's 6% damage, like 6% damage across the board. 6% AD.
If you look at the statistics about like who gets first dragon versus who gets first tower, and see who wins.
But if you do look at statistics, you'll see that extra 6% AP and AD, in addition to what you can buy in items, does not make up its value until usually about the 30-minute point in the game, about 25 to 30 minutes into the game. Now, you're better off.
I don't know about that, but like I understand your point.
But you're better off taking a tower, getting gold, and then buying items. And that at least in the early game, that 6%, you're getting more than that 6%.
Yeah, because it's not just about the statistics or the gold. It's also about the pressure that's no longer there on the map with the tower.
It's a small immediate power spike. It's something that in the long run, the first dragon will help them more. And it also in the long run
gets you closer to the 5th dragon.
Yeah.
Yes, but in the short term, the extra golden items get you more in the short term. The key is to make sure that you get that next dragon.
I want to make sure we're making the transition here because I know that's what Haber was originally working on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
Back to Dragon.
we're no more dragon for now.
All right, no more Dragon.
So if you're one of the ways to counterplay a siege is to just have a champion that can hold out a siege.
Lux.
And I have to give a shout out to Ziggs,
And
not
Lux.
Lux, because Ziggs
And
is
Lux
way better at fucking
and
wave clearing.
Zelane.
Sucks
Amazing.
because Lux has a shield, and if she tries to if they try and poke at her, you can just be like, I don't really feel
Honestly,
it.
I feel like I've won so many games on Ziggs just by denying people from A-ramming mid and just wave clearing indefinitely.
I did
Xerath's another good one I like.
did that with a game
And
earlier.
Victor.
I was coaching somebody and I was playing Lux mid, and it was a 4v5, and I was just like, if we keep delaying, I'll eventually be able to insta-give pretty much everybody. And so I would sit in mid lane and 3 of them would be there and they just wouldn't push me because, mages and their frickin' wave clear.
So now
but-
the transition here. Okay, while Ziggs is doing all this stuff, let's
Or
say
Lux.
that he doesn't have or Lux or any pretty much wave clear mage. This gives opportunities for the team that's elsewhere on the map to do other things. So when you have that Tryndamere in top lane, what is he doing?
Split pushing! Yay! Oh, I feel like you're Dora the Explorer. I love it.
Dora.
I hate
Anyways.
split pushers with a fucking passion. I hate you
Everyone
so goddamn
hates
much.
the split pushers, but it's kind of like you.
That's why
have
they
to-
work.
Yeah,
Why I
because it
love
does
Trundle
work.
and Shen.
Oh my god, I hated Tryndamere for the longest time because every goddamn time we're doing something, and I'd look back after the team fight, and like, oh, Tryndamere's taking our next. Fuck.
So we said it's
fuck.
great to group in the mid game. It lets you do things as a team.
That's
but
one
one of the
strategy, yeah.
counter tactics to this is split pushing. So can somebody just for new players describe what the idea behind split pushing is on a very basic level?
The idea of split pushing is taking a champion that can decently burn down a minion wave and has good sustained damage they can put onto a tower. This is usually going to be champs that do AD or attack damage or have decent AD. That way they can put a lot of damage onto the tower, keep hitting the
A
tower.
lot of the damage comes from auto attacks.
Yes. And a split
fact,
pusher.
all damage does, I think.
Hmm?
It's pretty much most, if not all, damage comes from auto attacks.
Well, like versus like an AP mage or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twisted Fate's like a noted.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right.
As the
Yes.
counter, but keep
But-
going.
But a split pusher is someone who can do that and then either is durable enough or escapey enough, like slippery enough to where when people start heading their way, they can get out.
Or dually enough.
Or
Yeah,
or if
that's the
one
other
person, one or two people comes their way, they're able to take them on because
i.e.
they've
Tryndamere.
got that nice strong mid-game power spike. A lot of these champions are Tryndamere, Trundle,
Zed.
Shen,
Don't say it. Don't.
Jax.
No! God!
Jax.
Don't say his name!
Jax.
I hate that fucking champion.
But he's one of the best split
There's
pushers.
gonna be a lot of
He
listeners
also
that love
does our
Jax, but
intro,
just
you
alienated.
asshole.
I know, I just hate that champion so much. He's such a
We love you,
dick.
Eric Bra.
We do, we
Why-
really do,
so-
but I
so
hate Jax
Let's
so
talk
fucking
about what
much.
are the effective strategies on
Okay.
Jax. Why do you find Jax annoying?
He's annoying because he's really, really, really good at split pushing and really, really, really good at dueling. He's like just amazing at it.
Yeah.
He takes turrets ridiculously quick. I don't need to talk about Jax. I don't need to explain him. He's amazing split pusher, but he succeeds so well because his kit, and you'll notice this in most split pushers, but his kit utilizes everything from good wave clear to something to give him bonus attack speed or something to help his damage to something to help him get away to something to help him duel. Like he's just he's a split push champion by definition. Like Tryndamere or Jax or any of those guys.
And one thing that's really huge that ties back to our early game discussion is that we said the early game is to set you up for the mid game.
Yeah, like Doom.
So if you do well in the early game, all of the different strategies that you employ in the mid game get some sort of added benefit. you're sieging, your poke is going to do way more damage to the enemy team. It's going to be harder for them to defend the turret. If you're a split pusher and you're a strong duelist like Jax, it creates a situation where they can't actually just send one person up to deal with you, or else Jax is going to kill him.
Well, and at that,
are you not entertained?
At that, they have to send the person that they don't want to send up there. Like, I want to keep the Ziggs in the fucking mid lane so that we can stop the siege, but Jax is split pushing top and he's got the best wave clear and no one else can duel him, so we either risk losing mid because we have to send 2, or we send the one person that can clear and then we send him off to the side, and now we have 2 people split pushing, and then that guy just leaves and goes to another lane because he has teleport, and all of a sudden he's split pushing bot lane, and you're like, well, fuck! I hate you,
Jax.
Jax.
Split pushing is really an effective strategy when done correctly, because it sets up a no-win scenario for the enemy team.
Yeah,
it's giving them 2 choices. Both of them they lose.
Yeah, it's
say,
2
hey,
evils.
like in that situation, hey, if you send someone top, we're gonna take mid. If you don't, we're gonna take top. Either way, we win.
Yeah,
and it's very important to recognize that if you're the split pusher, you can't just always go to a lane and expect it to work out in your favor. You have to wait for an opportunity to present itself. Say you've calculated the dude potential. You see people in the mid lane and the top lane and say, okay, if I go bottom right now, there's not going to be enough people to stop me because there are 4. I can see at least other 4 people everywhere else. So I can go to the bottom lane and they can't do anything about it.
This is an important aspect of split of just,
it's what separates the split pushers from that asshole you play with.
that is just farming the other waves.
But here's a real quick thing about just a quick tip about vision that you brought up in that is that one of the great things about vision is that it doesn't just let you see people, but it lets you not see people.
Oh, please don't. I don't want to have this conversation.
No, but it's just that not seeing someone is just as important as seeing someone. You can assume where they might or might not be at, but at the same time, if you don't see 4 people and you only see 1, you have to assume that there's a potential, if you're overextended by yourself, that you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing about split pushing, is just knowing your safety zone. How many people do I see? How many people don't I see? And can I assume that I know what they're doing right now? Because
every single strategy in the mid game has an added bonus of vision. In that vision informs your decision making.
Yeah, like when it comes to vision, the thing I like to say is move on up. You have to take where you would normally put your vision. Like in the laning phase, it's common for people to put just a ward in the river. As you get farther along, if you're ahead, it's important to move it's important to move your vision up. And it may be at small incremental values. Like say you put it right in the middle of the river. Maybe that next ward goes at the entrance to the river on the enemy side. Then it goes up to the blue buff ward. Not the blue buff, brush.
Red buff.
And and you just keep moving it up and up, so you always see you're constantly taking over that area. You are Hitler invading Poland.
So long as you're ahead.
Yeah.
I don't just make sure that you're doing this when you're ahead. If you have turrets down and you're on your inner turrets and you're trying to ward up the enemy jungle, you're pretty out of position, buddy. You probably shouldn't be warding over there if you're into your inner turrets and you don't have any of theirs. So, take it with a grain of salt as what it is. Ward up. I always say ward up the objective that you want to take next. If you plan to take dragon, dragon's in a couple minutes and you want to set up for dragon, say you're behind, ward up your bottom side of the jungle. Make sure that you're warding in that area to make sure you're catching people that are trying to ward your jungle. Or that they're warding, so, you can plan accordingly and get rid of them. Those sorts of things. So I say to ward for the objective in the mid game. I feel like that stops you from wasting wards. And this is reminiscent of a subreddit topic that I had a conversation with somebody else that I feel like I might need to clarify. But honestly, Ward up for
Whoa.
the objective. Don't waste wards, and make sure you're dropping as many as you can in the right spots, please. Not wasted like up in the top lane when everybody's bot type of deal.
So we talked about sieging and we talked about split pushing. One thing that we said it can create a lose-lose scenario when it's done properly. But, on a very basic level, because I know this is an advanced topic, how do I deal with a split push? Like, what are my options if I'm dealing with a split pusher?
Well, go ahead, Doom.
I was just going to say, really, it's either you go full force after that split pusher and you shut them down. So you group up, you take your team there, and you start going after him. If you can kill him, great. If he gets away, you make sure that you take that tower. Because 4 or 5 people can shove down a lane faster than even one of the best split pushers. So if you can, you want to take a tower or take a dragon or establish vision control to where that split pusher isn't going to be very cheeky after you start shoving down other lanes and counter shoving them. So make it a lose-lose situation for them. Yeah, your split pusher can keep on pushing, but we're going to do it as a team, and now you can come at us. But if your split pusher is going to keep split pushing, you're going to come at us 4v5. And we're going to have the numbers advantage.
That's the huge thing. It's really like if you think of it this way, like if I have a team of 5 people and they have a team of 4 people and we're both kind of by an objective, and then they have one person off splitting, we have to. It's
the game of what's the bigger number. Pure and simple.
So you have to really ask yourself in the situation, and this is really hard in a solo queue environment, but if you're somebody who can engage for your team, this is like one of your key moments in decision making. If you are able to see an opportunity that, okay, we have 5, they have 4, if we take this fight right now, we will win this fight, and then that split pusher will be off, separated from his team, and he won't be able to help in this fight. If you can take that fight, then you will almost always outwin that split pusher. Now, on the flip side of that, if it doesn't work out, then it's kind of like a lose-lose in that the split pusher is going to get something and the enemy team's going to hold off your aggression.
The main thing in the mid game is just be decisive, and you need to do it as a team. So if one person says, you know what, this is what we're going to do, then go follow that person into the gates of hell.
Even if it's the wrong choice and you know it. Like, even if you know that you, like, they want, he's like, jungler's going to red buff, and you see, I'm like mid lane, say I'm Lux, because I'm always Lux, and jungler runs into the enemy. Enemy jungler, and
just
the
assume
ADC,
Asderition is Lux.
ADC follows suit, and the support follows suit, and I'm standing here next to the fucking Jax, and I'm like, well, I guess. But, I mean, that makes sense, right? Even if you don't know, like, what's going to happen or you can't plan accordingly, at least you're with your team. And at least you're doing it together. Because that's where you'll have the most success, is with your team. Even if it's the wrong choice. Like I said, you still might find success. You'd be surprised at how awesome some shit can happen when you get really lucky. Like a rate bush or something. You're like, I'm just going to stand in this bush and we're just going to wait and wait and wait as a team, and you're like, aha, caught you, and then you take a mid turret or something like that. But I mean, it happens all the time. It's mid game is like, we wait, we find someone, we kill them, we push an objective, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I think that about wraps up split pushing for what we want to get into right now. Surprisingly, we are out of time already. Oh God,
I'm not surprised.
So,
there's still so much more to talk about.
There is still so much more, and that's why we kind of said, the rest of it we're going to cover on our next week episode. So
can we, at the very least, before we hop into the next segment, can we just let's each pick one key point out of that whole thing? Just pick one key point that you think is super important.
You go ahead, Doom.
Vision control.
Damn, it took mine. Knowing your strengths going into there. And grouping,
I was gonna say that. It stops being a game about laning and KDA and starts to be a game about objectives and grouping.
It can't be Lux, Asderition. Sorry.
No, well,
pick Lux.
Give me a minute. I need a second to think, because I don't want it to be the same one as you guys, because that's no fun. So I need a second to think.
Well, then while you're thinking here, I'll let you just interject it randomly into our listener questions. So just to make us feel worse. Yeah, we're going to move on to listener questions here. We got a couple here this week. We got more just sitting in the mailbag, but this is what we pulled up from the mailbag this today. So from Ryan, he says, as a support main in low silver, I really don't like to rely on my team to carry. So naturally, I play high damage carry style support like Zyra. The only problem is that often my team's top laner and jungler will not play a tanky champion, even if they see that I'm not playing a tanky support. Am I better off just defaulting to tanky supports to keep the tank to damage ratio good? Or is it better to sacrifice some tank if we can have the potential to carry the game? Yeah.
So
you can take this, Doom, for now.
This is understanding your strengths and weaknesses. And part of it is, one, you're better off playing champs you're comfortable with. Two is that if you want to play tanking sports, that's not necessarily a bad idea, because statistics show that teams with more tanks tend to do better overall.
Especially right now.
Yes. But you have to be decisive. So you have to realize that if you're going to carry the game as a mage support, as a burst support, your power spike is usually going to be in the mid game, and this is where you need to be extremely decisive. You need to be making picks. You need to be staying with your carry and encouraging them to, hey, come with me, let's go kill stuff, because that's your strength. If you're a tank, you want to be more in the aspect of, hey, I will protect you, team, and if they come in, I'm going to initiate an awesome team fight and we're going to wipe them.
I really see two questions here, and the two questions I see is, the first one is really just what is said here. Am I better defaulting to tanky supports, or should I play someone who I'm comfortable with? And then the second part, which I think we can talk about just after this, is sort of, do I need to play supports that have like carry potential, or like what is carrying from the support role versus others? So I think first let's stay on the first question, which is basically, if I'm looking at my team composition in solo queue, what do you think? Should I play a tank if our team is missing a tank, or should I play who I'm comfortable on?
I think when it comes down to that, if you're not comfortable playing like Thresh or Braum or Leona, don't play them, because it's gonna hurt you.
More than it'll help.
It really is. Yeah, but in that same thread, you should maybe give these champions a chance, because they are very strong, especially Leona.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Make sure that this is I'm assuming that you're talking about ranked here. You didn't specify, but I'm gonna assume that you're talking about ranked. Like, if you're gonna try and pull out a champion that you're not comfortable on ranked, I'm going to be more mad at you for doing that than if you had just picked the champ that I don't think that we necessarily need. Like, if you were to pick Zyra when I think we need a tank, and you're just more comfortable on her, then I would be like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. We'll just compensate through, I don't know, our comp, because we're a fucking poke comp or something, or a pick comp, not a fucking engage
realize
comp.
that we need to really go in and
do
go
something
hard.
Different.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some of those comps next week.
If you want to be the best support you can possibly be, then learn those other supports. But don't do it in ranked, because it's gonna make me mad.
Yeah, take normals.
Take it as normals.
Bots.
Don't do new champions in ranked.
100% agree with Haberdashing and Asderition here. It's really good to have a well-rounded team. It's an advantage, actually. But at the same time, in a solo queue environment, your ability to perform on your champion is pretty much the most important thing.
It's like the only thing, really.
Everything
else is up to luck.
Thing.
Everything else is up to luck. Who you get paired
with, say Lux?
Where you are. Yes.
I swear, you're making Lux sound like Lux just because like you're used to saying that more.
Everything relies and revolves around Lux.
Yeah, so if you love Zyra, which it sounds like you do, and you love playing Zyra in the support role, if your team doesn't have a tank, you're going to have to just carry, using the strengths of your champion, your CC, your vision control, all the things that come into the support, and you're just going to have to win in that way. you might not have that same team fight composition that you really want, but you can still very much win games in solo queue. You'd be surprised what team compositions win in solo queue. Now, let's talk about this whole notion of carrying. I think this is something that we bring up almost every episode, but I think for this specific question, it's worth mentioning again.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel in the bot lane, especially like bronze silver, it's easier to say you're carrying on these like AP supports, your Brand, your Zyra, your Lux, Karma, those people, because they're able to just poke out people, and that's the end of it. But it doesn't mean you can't carry on Leona or on Braum or on Thresh.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, the people that play Thresh well, the people who play Leona well, get praised more at the end of the game, because they just see like these mad life hooks come out of nowhere, and it's those things that really they affect the game. It doesn't matter like if it's early game, if it's late game, they'll always be effective. Whereas like your Brands, like because they don't have that gold income, will fall off the later the game goes on.
Everyone knows those games where they played against somebody who was just a terror on one of these CC supports, and even though they can't delete you, they can barely even touch you in terms of damage. You feel terrified because they have complete vision control over an entire area.
Well, that being said, all those three people that I listed off do a good amount of damage.
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean,
especially
Leona. A Thresh
Leona's a
isn't going to delete you, but a Thresh that keeps landing hooks and denies all your vision is going to terrorize you for the rest of the game.
Yeah. I think the best way to answer your question, Ryan, is that it's a matter of best case scenarios. Say your first pick and you pick Zyra and everybody picks something that isn't what your team needs. You just got to suck it up and deal with it. I mean, you have the option to dodge if you so choose, but if you really want to just stick it through and play to your comp. It's not about the strongest comp in the meta. It's about you as a player in solo queue.
It's not like everyone in solo queue is going to come in.
For now.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to have the perfect comp. It's solo queue. People will play what they want.
But
specifically as it's worded here, you say, is it better to sacrifice some tank if I have the potential to carry the game myself if I have to? And that's the specific thing I wanted to focus in on. You can carry the game yourself with these champions that aren't like an Annie that does a lot of damage from that role. Every champion can pretty much carry from that role. There's a lot more to it than just damage dealt to champions, but we do agree that you should pick what you're comfortable with rather than what's going to be the perfect champion to fit this team.
Always. So that's where coming down to diversifying your champ pool is a smart thing to do too, but
I mean,
that's true.
Just learn. Like, it doesn't even have to be one that you find meta remarkably interesting, like Leo or any of that. Like, Alistar right now is really strong, and he's an awesome engage champ and tanky. Like, and he also does some things that range supports are really good at, like doing a crap ton of damage for no fucking reason because his AP scaling is stupid high. But like, you get champions like this that are just awesome in specific scenarios that you would be surprised if you just even like tried out in a normals. So I mean, if your last pick, I would suggest always trying, not always, if you're comfortable with a champion, pick according to the team. If you're not comfortable with a champion and your best bet is to just go on Zyra, then just go on Zyra. But that being said, please go learn how to play a tanky champion. It doesn't matter how many.
I completely agree.
It could be one. I don't care. It's just so long as, like, if you need a tanky champion or you need something for Peel, you have it.
Yeah.
There's an advantage. You don't need to learn every champion, but you should learn maybe 2 or maybe 3 that can perform different roles in the team. If you only play this style of support, then you're always screwed with your team composition every time you find yourself in this situation.
And this like rotates over to all aspects. Like, I've been a little stubborn and only have been playing Lux lately, but there are definitely times where if I had picked Xerath or if I had picked Ziggs or I don't know, LeBlanc.
How's that Lux jungle working out?
It's pretty good actually. Like, her W is really useful.
We're not getting into this. Fuck you, Froz. making him bring up Lux, like, no, God. So I think that that wraps up this question. We'll move on here to Zelane. He writes in, and I do a little bit of correcting his email. I don't think he said English wasn't his first language, but he says, "Hello, my name is Elko Mill from the TeamSpeak and chat room. I have this friend who I play with a lot in normals, and when he plays support, he doesn't think that Sightstone or his support item are important. How can I cement this into his head that they are important?"
Easy. Tell him to go play mid lane.
Yeah,
Actually,
honestly,
just pour cement
Like, sounds like he
into
wants
his
to be
head.
carry.
Yeah.
Like,
That
you can
says
carry
Sightstone.
with a support, but there's a different way to do it.
Oh,
and
I thought you were gonna go somewhere different with that. I was like, yeah, tell him to go mid lane, and when he doesn't ward, he's gonna get his shit wrecked, and he's gonna learn real quick that he needs to ward. But
that
was
too.
what I was gonna say.
Absolutely. No, that
Yeah.
too. Absolutely. But he,
I mean-
he needs to learn. He needs to know his role. If he wants to support, then his job is to support.
Yeah, because like the whole thing is, as support, you're kind of gimped from the start. You're not getting the gold income that the rest of the team is going to be getting. So you have to work from there. You're not going to be getting the Rolls Royce of items. You have to try to get the items that you can. They're going to impact the game as much as possible.
And they're
that
cheap.
is Sightstone, first and foremost. And second, your support item, your gold generation item, to make sure you can try to get these other items as fast as possible. When you get that support item right away and you upgrade that, like your first or second back, that allows you to keep a steady gold income to supplement your normal income that you're not getting from minions.
Honestly, listen to this episode because we spend so much time today, and I'm sure we're going to mention this when we continue our mid-game discussion, talking about how vision control is key to getting objectives.
Yeah.
And you really, this Sightstone and sweepers and things like that, they help you to get objectives and make plays that you wouldn't normally be able to do, and it prevents people from getting caught out. It does so many things for you that you really... the way the support role used to be, I know we have a lot of people who've been playing a long time in here. This was so important that the support literally just filled their entire inventory with wards.
Oh my
Yep.
God, yes.
You got boots and you
I
got
loved
wards.
it.
All you got were boots and wards.
And back
shit
in that
you not.
time, to go farther, to go with that, everyone, you had to get gold per 10 runes.
Yep.
Because those items weren't there. Now you have those gold per 10 items that allow you to,
Tell your friend that he's not utilizing the things that Riot has given the support role to make them more effective.
Yeah,
just
and
tell
at
him
that-
that. Just be like, you're
at
not
that-
even playing it the right way, dude.
Yeah, and at that point, maybe you don't want to play support.
And if that's fine, that's fine. I don't like playing support.
Get
Just
him to
don't.
play something else. It sounds like, I think maybe mid lane would be a better fit for him.
Well, not if he doesn't like warding. But he
No, okay,
says not
I think
Sightstone and
We
support.
should
item.
say this here. If
you
your
don't like
friend doesn't
warding,
he
don't play
has
any
other
lane.
Yeah.
Don't
problems.
play any lane.
Well, play
But,
ADC
yeah.
because everybody.
I'm
hates on
sorry,
ADCs.
Even
my
ADCs need to ward.
I place more wards in the game than my support does on average.
Okay. Well, most ADCs
nobody-
that aren't on an
Yeah,
awesome
I
podcast
ward-
where we teach people to play the
I
game.
checked this out. I ward more than 98% of 80 carries.
Oh, no. See,
No,
there you go.
Yeah,
yeah, nobody.
I am
in,
proud of that.
In our Twitch chat, which you can join us every Thursday night, 9:30 p.m. Twitch.tv
Eastern
slash
Standard
T-Force
Time, Eastern
Podcast.
Standard Time,
Eastern
Eastern
Standard.
Standard Time.
Eastern Standard.
Yeah.
Nobody brought up watch support streams, YouTube videos, and LCS. If he wants to see why they're important, if LCS level pros, people who get paid money to play this game,
Yeah.
are playing support role and using these items, there's a very good reason. So tell him to check out. I really recommend Crepo or we're gonna have a guest here in a few weeks who's a challenger level support who's writing a book.
Who wrote a goddamn book?
On how to
Yes.
support. Tell him to read that book. Yeah. Tell him
Yeah.
to read the book on support.
The Art of Support.
It's called The Art of Support.
It's a good book.
My last little bit on this Zelane is Tell if he can't understand from Riot, like if he just doesn't understand that Riot's, these are the tools that Riot is given supports to make them more effective. If he can't understand why LCS players are doing it, maybe he'll understand like a mathematical approach to it. Dom from T-Force Proper was known of using this analogy, but if a 75 gold ward or an 800 gold, eventually, Sightstone, if that 75 gold ward worth saves a 300 gold worth life, that is by definition cost effective, by complete definition. Yeah. And if he can't understand that, like even in the simplest terms, then I think that support might not be the role for him. And that's fine. Just try and approach it from a mathematical way.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's all we have for you this week here. We're going to be continuing our mid-game discussion.
Mid-lane?
No.
Mid-lane like Lux?
No.
Yeah, well, actually, that's going to be coming up later here. We're looking way off to the future. Not way off to the future, but we're going to have Big Fat LP on the show to be talking about mid-lane. So get excited for that. But
I'm not Jinx.
Yeah, I was about to say, thanks, Jinx.
I'm sorry?
Jinx is passive.
Jinx's passive is called Get Excited.
Oh my god, you guys are the... We're not always trying to make puns!
Yes, we are, actually.
Oh my
yes,
god.
we are.
Our tagline is a pun, Haber.
Hashtag to Claude.
Yeah, fair enough. Even in the show notes, I wasn't even trying to make those, Froz. We are the Four Words Podcast. Check us out, Twitter, email us, Facebook, whatever. We're out there, guys. Keep sending in stuff. And we'll see you next week.
Love you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Four Words Podcast. If you got questions or comments, feel free to email us at fourwards@trinityforcepodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Four Words Podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next week.